That's it? Well, one thing that you can't say that press conference was boring. So, haven't gotten you a video on this channel yet, but John Chayka was named the general manager of the Toronto Maple Leafs, and Matt Sundin named the special executive advisor, I think is the title. SEA that's a made-up title. It's Matt Sundin is back with the Leafs. That's all that matters. Who cares about the title?
Let's talk about that abomination, but first. You ever watch your team get totally and utterly and completely dominated on the ice and think to yourself, hey, I want to dominate off the ice like that. That looks like the fun thing to do. That's what I want. Well, then you need to look into the Toyota Tacoma, because right now they have the most powerful Tacoma ever. Its standard I-Force engine boasts an impressive towing capacity of up to 6,400 pounds. That's so many pounds! Maybe you need to haul your gear to the rink, perhaps for your first ever game. I hope so. That sounds like a lot of fun. Or if you're just, heading to a road game and maybe you're going to watch someone play in their first ever game. That also sounds like fun. Whichever you're doing, you can tackle that with ease with the Toyota Tacoma. Maybe you want to bring a giant sign with you that says, congrats on your first game. Well, the available power lift gate on the Toyota Tacoma makes it easy to load that sign in and take it out. If you want to experience power, capability, and convenience, then you need to check out the Toyota Tacoma. If you'd like to learn more, visit shoptoyota.ca or visit your local Ontario Toyota dealer during Red Tag Days, which is right now, running now, through May. ShopToyota.ca.
Now, I already made a video about John Chayka and his history with the Arizona Coyotes, because at the end of the day, you might hear about, oh, he was working out prospects and that got the Coyotes fined, or he had something weird with the Devils, whatever, and you don't care. I understand that not every fan is going to care. Did he make his hockey team good? Did he draft good players? Did he make good trades? I made a video. Overall, no, not really, no. Yeah, but Steve, he had a meddling owner and a bad situation, and then he came to the Leafs. I know, but enough about Brad Treliving. You could say that about John Chayka too. Anyway, go back and watch that video. It's 20 minutes, like it's in depth, it's thorough. You will get a better picture of what John Chayka was as a general manager when he was with the Arizona Coyotes. He was 26. He was 26 for 1 year of that. He aged. He had the job for multiple years. Stop infantilizing this grown adult man. Anyway, there was a press conference today. How did everyone do? Well, Matt Sundin was there. Let's start there. Let's start with good, bad, and ugly. Actually, it's more like good, fine, and ugly, because Matt Sundin was good.
I think I have knowledge and experience from being a player here, being the captain here, during an era too where a couple of times we went to the conference finals. I was lucky to play with, when I broke in here, with guys like Doug Gilmour, ended up playing with Wendell, Darcy. So there's, as I said before, I think great organizations also learn from earlier generations on what's been done well and maybe mistakes that you don't want to repeat. So I think with that experience, I hope to contribute at all the levels, like in terms of players, coaches, the people in the dressing room, but also with management, right? So I don't feel it that way. I feel really fortunate to be able to work for MLSE again, and especially for this fan base, who I think we all think deserves better, a team that is contending. So I'm really looking forward to it, to put in the work and try to bring the experience that I have and help the team.
He's there, I like to think, because he was the captain of the Toronto Maple Leafs for 11 years. He was here for 13 years. He described Toronto as home because it was home. Once again, I'm going to refer back to his book, Home and Away. I got to talk to him about that at length for a book event that he did at the Hockey Hall of Fame. I genuinely believe this guy who loves where he's from so much. The picture he paints of Sweden and the small town that he's from in that book is so beautiful. And then he comes to Toronto, of all places. This place where when he got traded here, he was on a fishing trip far up north in Sweden, and the media, the Swedish media, not the dreaded Toronto media, came and found him in a helicopter. That's how big a deal it was when he was traded here. He loves this place. He loves this team. He loves the crest. One thing that I've talked about very often, so many teams around the NHL have cherished alumni in their ranks. Now, you don't want them completely running the show in a lot of cases. Steve Yzerman in Detroit, that one's gone kind of sideways. Trevor Linden in Vancouver, that went kind of sideways. We talked about that. But there are a lot of good examples. And when I was walking around San Jose last year with Adam and Jesse, walking around their practice facility, walking through their rink, I couldn't believe that I couldn't go around a corner without bumping into a San Jose Sharks alumni and a participating San Jose Sharks alumni. Not just some guy who was hanging around and shaking hands and wearing the jacket. A guy who was on the ice with the team, helping the young players get better. The Leafs need more of that, and they need more of that so badly. Is Sundin going to get on the ice with the guys? I don't know. But there are questions of leadership with this team. There are questions of culture with this team. And having Matt Sundin back with this team in whatever made-up role they have him in, I don't really care, I think is a good thing. And when he was asked questions, he was Mets. He was charming. He was polite. He was personable. It wasn't fiery. It wasn't particularly noteworthy. It was what it was meant to be, to have all Leaf fans go, hooray, there's Mats. Then there's John Chayka. Listen, I'm going to be honest, and I've been very open about how I feel about John Chayka being the new GM of the Toronto Maple Leafs. He did a good job. He did a very good job at this press conference. And he would have done a better job had Keith Pelley just let him. Unfortunately, my conversation about John Chayka is going to be blended in with my conversation about Keith Pelley. Keith kept interrupting him. I mean, really, how am I supposed to believe that John Chayka has autonomy as the general manager of hockey operations, as Keith Pelley put it, when Keith Pelley doesn't even trust him to run a press conference? Let the man, the near 40-year-old man, speak. People talk about him like the Coyotes were an internship. Anyway, John Chayka knows what we've been saying about him. He knows what people have been saying about him. He knows what the hockey world has said about him. And he was prepared for the questions that he was going to get. He was very polite. He was cordial. He was charming. And he was somewhat hat in hand. He could have been bold and brash and standoffish about his history and the things that went on in Arizona. He did make one claim that he helped keep the Coyotes in Arizona, which I found completely ridiculous. But other than that, I thought he was very good and kind of made you root for him a little bit. I mean, look, I'm a Leafs fan. I'm a very large Leafs fan, huge Leafs fan. I'm rooting for John Chayka. He's the GM of the Leafs. I want him to do good so badly. I haven't watched the Leafs in a conference final since both John and I were in elementary school. That's true. Ew. The last time the Leafs were in a conference final, the general manager, their current general manager, was in elementary school. Now, I didn't love this answer when Rosie DiMano basically asked, hey, what's the hierarchy here?
Hi, Rosie DiMano from the Toronto Star, and I'm confused. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think either of these gentlemen have been given the title head of hockey operations. Is that correct?
John is the general manager of hockey operations.
Okay. So I'm not sure which of these men is senior and how the organization will work. Who
Sure.
reports to you?
Sure.
Who makes the final decision?
Sure. So as the role of CEO is to put the structure and process and experts in place and then empower them to make the decisions. At the time of the interviews, and it was really fascinating, neither John or Mats at any time talked about titles. They only talked about goals, and that's the winning the Stanley Cup. In fact, I don't even think Mats knew what his contract title was until he got the contract himself. Would that be fair?
Fair.
Yeah. So I can tell you unequivocally that these two gentlemen are totally focused on one thing, and that's bringing the Stanley Cup to Toronto. The way that it'll work is John is the general manager of hockey operations, and I think these two will work collaboratively together on everything. Big decisions will obviously be collective, but at the end of the day, on a day-to-day business, John is the general manager of hockey operations, and Mats has a role within hockey operations, but it will be something that will completely be collaborative throughout the entire process.
No, that's not good enough to me. We need a hierarchy here. Who's in charge of what? This was supposedly the problem, is Brad Treliving would kick tires on everything, and then he would go up to Keith because now there's no one between him and Keith after Shanahan is fired and then not replaced. And did you notice how nothing happened? Nothing happened. Not a single trade between the Dakota Joshua trade last July and Nick Waugh less than a week before the trade deadline this year. So the fact that they had a chance to fix the fact that there is no hierarchy and didn't fix it, that's disheartening to me, no matter how good of a job John Chayka does. And I hope he does a very good job. Now, this is what you all came for. Steve Simmons, it's like, what, third question in? He goes straight for the jugular at Keith Pelley, basically going, why John Chayka, in a very not polite way. And, well, here's the clip.
Steve Simmons, Toronto Sun, for Keith. You talk about the due diligence that you did on John prior to hiring him and now hiring him. In the past, say, 3 to 4 days, I have been in contact with about 20 people who work in the National Hockey League, many of whom are prominent names that we would all know. And of the 20 people I spoke to, one was supportive of John's hiring, and the other 19 thought it was a sham, to be perfectly honest. Words were used like con artist, liar, salesman. How did you come to a different conclusion than I was able to come to in a very short time?
I must have talked to different people.
That's it? Because I'm telling you, the hockey world today is astounded by this announcement.
Okay.
And your response to that?
Is we've conducted due diligence, and it was deep due diligence. It was a thorough process, and I'm quite happy with where we've landed.
You don't know what to do. I could see the conflict in you. You're like, I don't like Keith Pelley, but I don't like Steve Simmons. Well, here, let me give you another Steve to not like, me. Because Steve Simmons has spoken to far more people than me. I'm just going to go ahead and assume the kind of people that Steve has talked to in hockey. They're probably older, definitely old school, and they frown on analytics. They frown on new ways of doing things. That's just my guess. And I'm here to tell you that a lot of the people that I've spoken to are not like that. In fact, I would describe them as the opposite of that. And they also say that John Chayka is all the things that Steve Simmons said: a salesman, a con man, a liar. And I think Keith Pelley got some media trading that eroded as the press conference went on, because he discovered that nothing good happens when words come out of his mouth in front of a microphone, because he is not used to talking to a room full of people who are not all exclusively employees of his. That's why they had the MLSE employees in the background. Woo! Cheer for me. I laid off half your friends. Yeah, it's going to be more. Also, it's going to be more. Anyway, what was your question? Keith's response to this question and several others came off as a petulant elementary school bully. Listen, I've heard lots of things about Keith Pelley from a lot of different companies, from his time at CBC, from his time at Rogers, and generally, people found him to be charming. People found him to be nice to talk to, but they also said he had an ego. Like, it was described verbatim as a massive ego. Little man syndrome, they used. And it's hard to be a guy with little man syndrome sitting between John Chayka and Matt Sundin. But you got to pick a lane. You got to pick a lane. Either you're stoic, can't be rattled guy, or you're go back right in their face guy. And Pelley was very clearly doing an act of stoic guy who's not rattled by it all guy, who was very rattled by it all guy. And then by the end of the press conference was pretty obviously rattled by it all guy. And I should follow up all the nice things that I've heard from CBC and from Rogers. It's exclusively negative things I've heard from MLSE. They don't like him. I'd like to know how many of the people standing there in the background of this press conference were like, yeah, this is going to be a disaster. Put it this way. Keith Pelley said to Steve Simmons in a smarmy way, you and I must have talked to different people. Well, I talked to different people than Steve Simmons, and they all said the same thing. So here's what I am going to hope and pray for as a Leafs fan. This guy grew, and this guy learned. Everything I'm hearing, I got my doubts, but as a Leafs fan, pom-poms on, go John. Oh, also, sure sounds like Craig Berube, Stan. Yeah, everyone who watched last year unfold thought, let's run it back. In terms of what John Chayka is going to do, his direction, he offered nothing. He talked about how, well, a lot of players underperformed and, okay, so he's not going to make a bunch of changes, right? He's going to keep those guys and he's going to put them in a position to succeed. And also we need to make big changes. So he's put himself in this middle ground where he is committed to nothing, which I actually think is a good thing. One of the things that damned Kyle Dubas was we can and we will. And John Chayka did not stick his foot in his mouth during this press conference with a similar quote.
Realistically, how far away is this team from contending for a Stanley Cup? What season do you think you can get this thing going?
You want to take it? You haven't.
Go ahead.
Okay. The way I would think about it, Luke, is there's a gap right now between where we are and where we'd like to be. So I think it's upon us to go and collect information and understand that better. I think the optimistic, hopeful side is I really do believe that this team has a lot of latent upside. I think a lot of the players underperformed. I think there's lots of opportunity to get in there and find ways to do a better job with the internal group. Having said that, I think it's reality that we're going to have to make some changes and we're going to have to fill some holes, and there's some fundamental ways in which we're going to have to change the team. And so I think that's what our goal is. I think every season is sacred to our fans, to our players, to our ownership. I think it's incumbent upon us to put the best team on the ice that we can. And it's going to take a high hit rate. It's going to have to take some creativity. We're going to have some things go our way, but we certainly feel like we're well positioned with a core group. We have some players that are some of the best players in the world that wear this sweater. And it's upon Matt and myself to put in place the structure and the principles and give them the resources to go out and accomplish their goals.
I want to wrap by saying this. Keith, you hired John, you hired Mats. Go away. Go away. Don't look at a microphone for like a long time. You're not good at it. Not everyone's good at it. You don't need to be good at it. You were hired to be CEO of MLSE, not the CEO of press conferences. Every time you step in front of a mic, I get more concerned about the direction of this team and the Raptors and TFC and. Stop! And go on a Google Teams meeting, whatever it is, whatever CEOs do. I know I'm a CEO. Stop it. Stop it. I don't make as much, like by a lot. Anyway, we're about to record a brand new episode of the Steve Dangle podcast. Jesse Blake was at this press conference. There was a scrum after the press conference where John Chayka was available, where Matt Sundin was available. Jesse Blake spoke to the both of them. I have not even heard these quotes yet. That's how fresh it is. I can't wait to hear him, and I can't wait to talk about this with Adam Wild and Jesse Blake. Maybe the Mad Duck also. So be sure to follow the SDPN YouTube channel for that. And for now, that is it for this one. Thank you very much for watching. Click like if you like this video. Click subscribe if you really like to tell your friends. That's it.